It started like any ordinary evening, but deep down, Lena had already begun to feel the ache of something missing. The soft ticking of the wall clock echoed in the quiet living room. Lena adjusted the throw pillow behind her back and glanced at the time again. Her husband, Daniel, had texted an hour ago that he would be working late again. That made it the third time this week. She wasn't angry. Not really. But the loneliness had started to settle into her bones like a slow, creeping fog. She was about to head upstairs when the doorbell rang. Confused, Lena pulled her sweater tighter around her shoulders and opened the door. There, standing with a boyish grin and holding a bottle of red wine, was Aaron, Daniel's longtime friend from college. Aaron, she blinked. What are you doing here? Daniel invited me over for dinner. He said he'd be home by 7, Aaron replied, lifting the bottle slightly. I hope I'm not too early. Lena gave a short laugh, stepping aside. No, not at all. But Daniel's running late. Come in, please. Aaron stepped inside, the warmth of the house soaking into him. He always liked being here. Something about Lena's calm energy made the place feel more like a home than any apartment he'd ever lived in. Lena led him into the kitchen, apologizing for the lack of dinner. I wasn't really planning to cook tonight, but I can whip something up. Only if I get to help, Aaron said with a charming smile. They cooked side by side, chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, and laughing at old stories about Daniel's clumsy college days. Lena found herself relaxing. She couldn't remember the last time she laughed like this. When they finally sat down to eat, the room glowed with soft lamplight. Music played gently in the background. The conversation flowed easily, shifting from lighthearted jokes to more personal stories. I always thought Daniel and I would be closer after college, Aaron admitted as he swirled the wine in his glass. But life just got busy, I guess. Lena nodded. Yeah, that happens. Even between husbands and wives. Aaron looked at her, really looked at her. You okay? That question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth to say she was fine, but something in his voice, the sincerity, the way he asked it like he genuinely wanted to know, made her pause. I don't know, she said softly. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to someone who's always somewhere else. There was silence for a moment. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. Aaron leaned forward slightly. You deserve to feel seen, Lena. Don't forget that. His words touched a part of her she had kept buried. She looked away, suddenly flustered. You're sweet, Aaron, but I'm just tired, that's all. They moved to the living room after dinner, sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The wine had warmed her cheeks, and the soft glow from the lamp made the space feel almost intimate. Lena pulled her knees up under her, watching Aaron talk about his travels and recent work. But all she could focus on was how different tonight felt. Not wrong, just different. The air felt charged, like something unspoken was floating between them. She caught herself watching his lips as he spoke and quickly looked away. Aaron noticed. I should probably head out soon, he said gently, setting down his glass. But this was nice. I didn't expect it to be. Lena nodded, trying to ignore the sudden tightness in her chest. Yeah, it was. They stood at the door. Aaron hesitated, looking at her with a softness that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. You know, he said quietly, I always thought you were the kind of woman who sees everything, but keeps everything inside. She didn't know how to respond. But before she could, he leaned forward, just enough. Not close enough to kiss her, but close enough that her breath caught, and then the door opened behind them. Daniel had come home. The front door opened with a sharp click, breaking the moment like glass shattering on a cold floor. Lena stepped back quickly. Aaron turned around, his face composed, as if nothing had just happened, or almost happened. Daniel stood in the doorway, laptop bag slung over one shoulder, his tie loosened and eyes tired. He blinked at them both. Hey, he said slowly. Didn't know you were already here, Aaron. Yeah, Aaron replied casually, stepping back with a smile. I figured I'd come early and catch up with Lena. We cooked together. Daniel glanced at Lena, his eyes narrowing slightly. You cooked? Lena forced a small smile. Just pasta and salad. It was last minute. Daniel nodded and set his bag down. Well, thanks. Sorry, I'm late. The tension hung in the air, like fog refusing to lift. Lena felt it press against her chest. Aaron, ever polite, gave Daniel a warm pat on the shoulder. I should probably get going anyway, he said, looking at Lena briefly. Thanks for dinner. Lena walked him to the door. He paused before stepping outside. Their eyes met again briefly, meaningfully. No words were exchanged, but Lena felt something stir again in her chest. Something that both excited and frightened her. When she returned to the living room, Daniel was already on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "You could have waited for me," he muttered. Lena sat at the other end, her voice soft. "You said you'd be home by 7. It was almost 9. I was working." "I know." Silence again, thick and uncomfortable. Daniel didn't ask how her evening went. He didn't ask how she was feeling. He didn't even notice that her eyes looked a little different tonight, softer, heavier, distant. Later that night, after Daniel had fallen asleep beside her, Lena lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her heart beat quietly, but her thoughts were loud. She kept seeing Aaron's face, not just the way he looked at her, but the way he saw her. It had been so long since someone had really listened. The next morning came with routine, coffee, Daniel, rushing out the door, silence. But Lena felt anything but routine inside. Her emotions were tangled like wires: guilt, confusion, curiosity. She picked up her phone, then quickly put it back down. What would she even say to Aaron? Still, as the day dragged on, the memory of last night lingered. His voice, his warmth, that moment at the door, right before Daniel came in. Had Aaron felt it too? A few days passed. Lena tried to focus on her artwork. Painting had always been her escape, but even that didn't quiet her mind. Then, one afternoon, her phone buzzed. "Aaron, hey, hope this isn't too forward, but I was wondering if you'd like to get coffee sometime. Just talk." Her fingers hovered over the screen. Her heart thudded in her chest. This was dangerous, but the loneliness inside her whispered louder than her reason. "Lena, I'd like that." They met at a quiet little cafe tucked away from the main road. It was the kind of place where no one really knew your name, and no one asked questions. Aaron stood as she walked in, a soft smile on his face. "You came," he said. "I did." They talked. Not about Daniel. Not directly, but about life, memories, dreams, regrets. "You always wanted to be seen," Aaron said gently, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "And now that I see you, Lena, I don't think I can unsee you." She looked at him, her throat tightening. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. And just as she opened her mouth to respond, her phone buzzed on the table. Daniel was calling. Her heart froze. Aaron watched her face change, saw the flicker of panic. He reached across the table, not to stop her, but to remind her that she had a choice. "Do you want to answer it?" he asked softly. Lena stared at the phone. Daniel's name flashed on the screen like a silent accusation. Her thumb hovered over the green button. Then, slowly, she let the call ring out. She looked up at Aaron, her eyes a little unsure. "I don't know what I'm doing." Aaron didn't judge. He simply nodded. "It's okay not to know." They sat there in silence for a moment, the kind that felt gentle, not heavy. Outside the cafe window, the world kept moving, unaware of the quiet storm building inside Lena's heart. "I didn't come here to hurt anyone," she said finally. "But I don't recognize my life anymore. I feel invisible in my own marriage." Aaron leaned forward, his voice low. "You're not invisible to me." Lena's breath caught. She felt something stir again, deep and undeniable, something that made her want to cry and smile at the same time. But she wasn't ready. "I need time," she whispered. "Take it," Aaron replied. "I'm not going anywhere." Over the next few days, Lena moved through her life like a woman, carrying a secret in her pocket. Daniel came and went, talking more about work than anything else. They ate dinner in silence, shared a bed but not intimacy. He never asked why she seemed quiet. He never noticed that she stayed up late or that her eyes often looked far away. One evening, as Lena folded laundry in the bedroom, she found one of Daniel's old college shirts. It was faded and soft, and for a moment, she held it against her chest. They had been in love once. That kind of young, easy love that felt like sunshine. But somewhere along the way, it had dulled, and now, all she felt was cold. Her phone buzzed again. "Aaron, just checking in. No pressure. Hope today was kind to you." A tear slipped down her cheek. It wasn't the message, it was the kindness. The way he thought about her when he didn't have to. She typed a reply. "Lena, thank you. I needed that more than I realized." A few days later, Lena sat at the park near the art museum, sketchbook in hand. She wasn't drawing anything in particular, just letting her pencil move where it wanted. Then she heard a familiar voice. "Mind if I sit?" She turned. Aaron, She hadn't expected him, but her heart didn't panic. Instead, it felt warm. "I guess you're following me now," she joked softly. He smiled. "Or maybe I just knew where to find you." They sat, side by side on the bench, the sketchpad resting between them. Lena showed him the page. It was an unfinished portrait of a man, his face unclear, but the eyes looked familiar. Aaron studied it. "Is that someone you know?" "I think so," she said quietly. "I'm just not sure what he means to me yet." Aaron didn't push. He didn't need to. She was opening up piece by piece, like a slow sunrise. "You know," he said after a moment, "I've loved being your husband's friend, but sometimes, I wish I had met you first." Lena turned to look at him. "Aaron." "No," he said, stopping her gently. "You're still married. You're still figuring it out. But I needed you to know." The wind moved between them, brushing her hair across her cheek. He reached out and tucked it behind her ear, with a touch so careful, so respectful, it made her heart ache. In that moment, Lena didn't feel like someone's wife. She felt like a woman who was seen. But as the sun began to set and the shadows stretched long across the park, Lena knew she couldn't live in this moment forever. "I have to go," she said softly, standing. Aaron stood too, but didn't ask for more. "Will I see you again?" She hesitated, then nodded. "You will." Those were the last words Lena whispered to Aaron before she left the park. But as she walked home, her heart beat with confusion. A part of her felt alive, seen, desired, heard. Another part felt heavy with guilt. By the time she stepped through her front door, twilight had fallen. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock. Everything looked the same, but she didn't feel the same. Daniel was in the living room, flipping through news channels, half distracted. "You're home late," he said without looking at her. "I went to the park," Lena replied, setting her bag down. "I needed some air." He glanced at her briefly. "Okay. There's leftover pasta if you're hungry." She wasn't. "Thanks," she said anyway. Lena stood there for a moment, just watching him. His focus was on the TV, his phone resting in his lap, still buzzing with emails and work messages. He didn't ask how her day was. He didn't notice her distant eyes or the quiet way her fingers curled around themselves. "Daniel," she said suddenly. He looked up. "Yeah, are you happy?" He blinked, caught off guard. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one," she replied. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Lena, I've been working nonstop lately. You know that. I'm exhausted." "That's not what I asked." He paused, then shrugged. "I guess I single quotes am ... Fine, why aren't you?" Her throat tightened. "I don't know anymore." Daniel didn't say anything. He didn't rush to hold her or ask her to talk. He just turned back to the TV like her question had been too complicated to answer. Lena quietly walked upstairs. That night, as she lay beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling, she felt like a stranger in her own marriage. Daniel was there, just inches away, but the emotional distance between them felt like miles. She turned on her side, facing away from him. Tears silently wet her pillow. She wasn't in love anymore. Or maybe, she had forgotten what love even felt like until Aaron reminded her. The next day, Lena found herself at her art studio downtown. It was a quiet space she rarely used anymore, but it had always been her sanctuary. She dipped her brush into soft blue paint and began to work without thinking. Her hand moved as if guided by memory. When she stepped back, the painting slowly came into focus. Two people standing in the light, close but not touching. Their bodies were near, but the space between them burned with longing. Her phone buzzed again. "Aaron, I'm thinking about that sketch you showed me, the one with the unfinished face. I haven't stopped thinking about it." Lena hesitated, then responded, "Lena, I haven't stopped thinking about you either." Later that evening, after Daniel left for a late meeting, Lena sat alone in the kitchen. Her heart was pounding. She wasn't waiting for Aaron. She hadn't planned anything. But a soft knock on the door told her everything. When she opened it, Aaron stood there, hands in his coat pockets, eyes unsure but open. "I shouldn't have come," he said quietly, "but I needed to see you." Lena didn't speak. She stepped aside. He came in. They didn't touch, they didn't kiss. But they sat across from each other at the kitchen table, eyes locked, breaths held in the same air. "I feel guilty," Lena whispered. "But I also feel like I'm finally awake." Aaron reached out, gently placing his hand over hers. Sometimes love shows up when it shouldn't. But that doesn't make it less real. A tear rolled down her cheek. And she didn't pull her hand away. The quiet weight of Aaron's palm over hers made her chest ache in ways she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't lust. It wasn't fantasy. It was something far more dangerous: comfort. Intimacy. A feeling she had missed so much. It almost felt foreign. They sat in silence, fingers loosely interlaced across the table. I don't want to be the reason you break something, Aaron said softly. But I also can't pretend I don't feel this. Lena swallowed the lump in her throat. You didn't break anything, Aaron. It was already cracked. You just showed me the cracks were real. He gave a slow, sad smile. So what now? She shook her head, voice barely audible. I don't know, but she did know this. She couldn't go on like before. Not pretending. Not lying to herself. Not ignoring the longing inside her chest. Aaron stood slowly, like he didn't want to wake whatever fragile moment they were inside. I'll go, he said. I care about you, Lena. Enough to wait, or enough to walk away. Whatever you need. She walked him to the door. Their eyes met again under the soft hallway light. No kiss, no goodbye. Just feeling. It hung in the space between them like electric, trembling. And then he was gone. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. Daniel came home late and slid into bed beside her without a word. She lay there with her eyes open, heart pounding, staring into the darkness. The silence between them wasn't just quiet, it was hollow. The next morning, Lena stood in the kitchen, sipping tea when Daniel walked in, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. You're up early, he mumbled. Couldn't sleep. He nodded, poured himself coffee. Neither spoke for a while. Then Lena asked, when was the last time we looked at each other like we used to? Daniel furrowed his brows. What are you talking about? I mean really looked, she said. Like we saw each other. Like we wanted to. He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up his phone and scrolled through emails. That silence was her answer. Later that day, Lena took a walk to clear her mind. The city buzzed around her, but she felt like she was moving underwater. Every step she took felt like a decision she hadn't made yet. She ended up on a park bench, the same one she'd shared with Aaron. She sat there with her sketchbook, flipping to the unfinished drawing of the man whose face she had never completed. This time, she picked up her pencil and let her hand move with certainty. She knew the curve of his jaw, the kindness in his eyes, the ache in his expression that mirrored her own. She was drawing Aaron, and when she finished, she didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just sat there, staring at the truth on the page. That evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. He found Lena waiting for him in the living room. I need to talk to you, she said. He sat down, sensing the seriousness in her voice. I've been lonely for a long time, Lena began, and I think you have too. We're sharing a house, but not a life. And I've tried. I've really tried. Daniel looked stunned. Are you saying you want to leave me? I'm saying I don't think we know each other anymore. He was silent for a moment, then asked, is there someone else? Lena didn't lie. There might be, she said, but this isn't about him. It's about us. Or the lack of us. Daniel leaned back, his jaw tight. So what are you saying? I'm saying, I need time apart. Space to figure out what I want. Because I don't want to keep pretending. I don't want to keep shrinking just to make this feel okay. Daniel stared at her, a mix of disbelief and quiet pain in his eyes. And Lena. She felt her chest lift for the first time in months. Lena's voice echoed softly in the room. But the truth of it sat heavy between them. Daniel rubbed his hands over his face, silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I didn't know you felt this way. I know, Lena whispered. That's the problem. Daniel's eyes held a flicker of sadness, maybe even guilt, but not anger. He seemed tired in the way people get when they've known something is broken but haven't dared to name it. Do you still love me? He asked. She looked down at her hands. I don't know. Maybe I love who we used to be, but I'm not in love with this version of us. Daniel nodded, slowly. And him. Are you in love with Aaron? I haven't let myself go that far, she said honestly. But he reminded me of who I used to be. He listened. He looked at me like I mattered. Daniel leaned back against the couch and stared at the ceiling. I don't hate him for that, he murmured. I think I hate myself more for not seeing it first. Lena blinked, surprised. In that moment, there was no blame. Just two people finally honest with each other. A week later, Lena packed a small suitcase and moved into a temporary apartment near her art studio. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't full of tears or shouting. Just quiet understanding that some goodbyes don't have to be loud to change everything. Daniel helped her carry the last box to her car. They hugged gently before she drove off to people who once promised forever, now drifting apart with grace. For the first time in a long time, Lena felt free. Not because of Aaron, not because she'd left Daniel, but because she had finally chosen herself. She didn't reach out to Aaron right away. She needed time to breathe, to remember who she was outside of anyone else. She painted every day, sometimes late into the night. Her art changed. It became more raw, more honest. People started to notice. One afternoon, she received an invitation to show her work in a small gallery exhibition. As she stood among her paintings on opening night, smiling at strangers who saw her now not just as someone's wife, but as an artist, she felt something shift inside her. She wasn't broken anymore. Later that evening, as the crowd thinned out, she stepped outside for air, and there he was. Aaron, leaning casually against the wall, holding a single white flower. "I heard this was your big night," he said, smiling. Lena smiled back. "You always seem to find me. I never stopped looking." For a long moment, they just stood there. No pressure. No promises. Then she said quietly, "I'm not lost anymore." Aaron stepped closer. "Good, because I don't want to save you. I just want to know you." That was what made Lena's heart open, not romance, not fantasy, but recognition. They stood together beneath the soft glow of city lights. The quiet between them no longer heavy with secrets but full of possibilities. Aaron gently held her hand. This time, she didn't hesitate, she squeezed back. Epilogue. 6 months later, Lena's gallery sold out its first full collection. Her work had taken on new life. She and Aaron moved slowly, choosing connection over urgency, honesty over illusion. Daniel and Lena remained civil. They didn't hate each other. Sometimes, they even spoke on the phone. Some loves don't last, but they still leave soft echoes behind. And Lena, she finally stopped apologizing for wanting more, for needing to feel seen, for believing she deserved a life that felt true. The end.